Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles Sebastian, and welcome you guys to another episode of the DREAMERSPRO show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. So, today we have a hell of a show for you guys here. But before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Instagram. My handle is CTABANZ. Let's get into this topic here. Now, some people I've noticed over the last month or so, about the last month and a half or so, let me say, we've been producing quite a bit of political content, and we've been attracting a lot of new viewers. And some of these people have been saying, "Hey, man, I signed up to hear some of your political takes, man. Can you do us a solid here?" And over the last few days, we've just been so focused on NBA content. But I said, okay, there's some things that have been happening over the last week or so that I definitely want to weigh in on, because I think a lot is happening that I think people want to hear my opinions on. So recently, TPUSA, Turning Point USA, the organization that was founded by Charlie Kirk, the late Charlie Kirk, had an event that I think was spearheaded by his wife. And at this event, you had a plethora of conservative speakers. Just to name a few: Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, Ben Shapiro, and a few other, Steve Bannon, and many others. And an event like this is a place where it's kind of like a meeting of the minds, where you share ideas, share thoughts, talk about the things that are concerning you, maybe talk about initiatives that they want to pursue going into the future. And it's a place where conservatives, MAGAs, however you want to call them at this point, the lines are so blurred at this point, just get together and kind of try to chart a way forward and gel. Well, that's not what happened. Okay, that is absolutely not what happened. Instead of this being a moment for them to come together, especially given some of the things that the president is facing with the Epstein files, the polls, with his numbers falling in the polls, some of the economic strife that exists out there, one would have thought that it would have came together. But instead, what ended up happening was just total chaos that ensued. You had Ben Shapiro going after people like Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes. You had Tucker Carlson firing back at the same event. And you could just see that there's a fracture here within MAGA. And now you have different groups of people just basically peeling off into different subgroups. And I'm saying to myself, how do these guys expect to win in the midterms when they're so fractured? So we want to get into some of the sound here. So what we want to do is want to play some of what Ben Shapiro had to say about Tucker Carlson, Andrew Tate, Nick Fuentes, and the whole conservative movement. And then want to come back and then play what Tucker Carlson had to say in response. Take a listen to Ben Shapiro here.
If Candace Owens decides to spend every day since the murder of Charlie Kirk, if Candace Owens decides to spend every day since the murder of Charlie Kirk casting aspersions at TPUSA and the people who work here, who worked with Charlie every single day, his best friends, to cast aspersions at Mikey McCoy and Andrew Colvin and Blake Neff and Tyler Boyer, and yes, at Erica Kirk, and to imply or outright claim complicity in a cover-up over Charlie's murder, to spew absolutely baseless trash implicating everyone from French intelligence to Mossad to members of TPUSA in Charlie's murder or a cover-up in that murder, then we, as people with a microphone, have a moral obligation to call that out by name. And the people who refuse to condemn Candace's truly vicious attacks, and some of them are speaking here, are guilty of cowardice. Tucker Carlson, it is not an excuse to go silent on Candace's targeting of TPUSA, or to mirror her lines of questioning because you love Candace personally. The same holds true of Megyn Kelly, a person I consider a friend, characterizing Candace as a young mother and thus shying away from condemning her actions or fibbing about them. That is a non-starter. Meghan Markle is a young mother. Ilhan Omar is a young mother. That doesn't matter. And when Megyn said this week, quote, "My goal and my job here is to try to understand, yes, where Candace is coming from on this," and says she sees no purpose in inserting herself, quote, "into this on one side," that is a moral and logical absurdity. There is only one moral side here, Erica Kirk's side. We have a duty to take responsibility for what we say and do. If we hire awful people, we're responsible for that. I have some experience there, as you might suspect. That means that if we offer a guest for your viewing, we owe it to you to ask the kinds of questions that actually get at the truth. If we agree with the guest, that's fine, but we should own it. So, for example, if you host a Hitler apologist, Nazi-loving, anti-American piece of refuse like Nick Fuentes, you know, the Nick Fuentes who said that the Vice President of the United States is a, quote, "fat gay race traitor married to a Jeet." The person who said that Charlie Kirk was a, quote, "retarded idiot." The person who said, and pardon my language here, it's his quote, that he, quote, "took Turning Point USA and that's why it's filled with groypers." If you have that person on your show and you proceed to glaze him, you ought to own it. There is a reason that Charlie Kirk despised Nick Fuentes, and indeed even chided Dinesh D'Souza for debating him. He knew that Nick Fuentes is an evil troll, and that building him up is an act of moral imbecility. And that is precisely what Tucker Carlson did. He built Nick Fuentes up. And he ought to take responsibility for that, just as he ought to take responsibility for glazing pornographer and alleged sex trafficker Andrew Tate, or for mainstreaming fake historian and pseudo-Nazi apologist Daryl Cooper as America's best and most honest popular historian. Hosts are indeed responsible for the guests they choose and the questions they ask those guests. Because we have a duty to truth, we also have a duty to provide you with evidence of the claims that we make. Emotive accusations, conspiracy theories, and just guessing questions, that's lazy and stupid and misleading. None of them are a substitute for truth. None of them are a substitute for evidence. So, when Candace Owens says, "I don't know, but I know," that is retarded. And we are all more retarded for having heard it.
Excellent. So you heard what he had to say. He didn't mince any words, and he started calling out people by name. You don't normally see that. Remember, the president just took power just about a year ago. This is his first year in office. It's about to be over with, and you're already seeing all of this infighting. Now, the thing about Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro, he said some of the things that even Nick Fuentes said about him. Remember, Tucker interviewed Nick Fuentes, and the sentiment around the MAGA movement or the conservative movement seems to be, based off of what I've heard and what some of these people have said about each other, is that Tucker seems to be a weasel, right? So what we want to do is want to play what Tucker had to say in response to Ben Shapiro calling him out on stage, and then we're going to come back and continue on the show. Take a listen to what he had to say there.
I just got here, and I feel like I missed the first part of the program. I hope I didn't miss anything meaningful. But I just want to say, I don't think I did. No, I'm just kidding. I watched it. I laughed. That kind of bitter, sardonic laugh that emerges from you when, like, Upside Down World arrives. When your dog starts doing your taxes and you're like, wait, it's not supposed to work this way. To hear calls for, like, deplatforming and denouncing people at a Charlie Kirk event, I'm like, what? This is hilarious. The last several months of Charlie's life were devoted in part to arguing about this event, in fact, this speech, in fact, my speech here, which he asked me to do earlier this year, this summer, and was immediately put under just immense pressure from people who give money to Turning Point, I would assume good people, but who wanted him to take me off the roster. And this has all become public, and the whole thing is so sad that I never talk about it, except to say Charlie stood firm in his often stated and deeply held belief that people should be able to debate, and that if you have something valid to say, if you're telling the truth, you ought to be able to explain it calmly and in detail to people who don't agree with you, and that you shouldn't immediately resort to shut up racist. I wonder why. Why are you asking that question? I detect in the question a certain evil in your soul. And everyone listening should know that listening to you implicates them, and that they someday may be asked to denounce you, and that friendship is not a reason to defend someone. Love is no defense. I kind of thought we'd reached the end of that, and as far as I'm concerned, we have, and I'm not going to play by those rules. I'm not going to engage in that. If someone doesn't like what I think, fine with me, as long as I get to express it. That's my view. But let me just say something more broadly about where the conservative movement, whatever that is, the people who voted for Trump, the Trump coalition, and the supposed civil war going on within that group. I don't think it's real. I think it's fake. I think it's totally fake. I don't think, and I've had cause to think a lot about this because I've been unwittingly involved in the proxy war. There are two things going on here, and I'm not guessing. One is jockeying for position post-Trump. So Trump created this amazing coalition, bringing in people who had never voted Republican before but were very enthusiastic about him. And that coalition took over the most powerful government in the history of the world. So there's a lot at stake here. And so the question becomes, who gets to run it after? Who gets the machinery when the president exits the scene? And there are a lot of people in Washington, maybe even in this room, who aren't quite sure what they want, but they know they don't want J.D. Vance. Okay? And so the attack, and you heard it from the stage tonight, there's someone here who's a very bad man, and he's friends with J.D. Vance. Could be me. I am sad about being used in a proxy war over politics in which I'm not involved in any level. I'm not an advisor to anybody. But I just think I should say that out loud, okay? There are people who are mad at J.D. Vance, and they're stirring up a lot of this in order to make sure he doesn't get the nomination. So this is true. So this raises the obvious question, which is, why are they mad at J.D. Vance? Such a nice guy, which he is. They're mad at J.D. Vance because he is the one person, and things could change, of course, but right now, who really kind of buys the core idea of the Trump coalition. Now, what is that idea? Ladies and gentlemen, anyone know? Anyone know? America first. It's America first. It's really simple. Which I notice some people are pretty anxious to retire that phrase. Remember when they told us? That's a bigoted phrase. Really? It is. And then they just decided to ignore it in favor of MAGA, Make America Great Again, which I'm obviously for. But how do you make America great again? By putting America first. Now, what does that mean? I'll be more precise. It's not a complicated concept. It's a really simple concept. The U.S. government, the largest organization in human history with the most well-funded military in history, ought to, in all the decisions it makes, put the interests of American citizens first.
Fantastic. So you heard his thoughts. What are my thoughts about this? Okay. What are my thoughts about this? Things done changed, folks. That whole kumbaya, let's hold hands. We're going into the future. We're going to crush them. It's over with. And I'm going to tell you why. One of the major things that caused this fracture was the president's comments over the Jeffrey Epstein files and that scandal. The president, who campaigned on transparency, draining the swamp, he's an outsider going to Washington to fix things, his base bought into this idea. For goodness sakes, after he won the presidency, he said, after that assassination attempt, he said that God saved his life, I'm paraphrasing here, to make America great again. And his viewers and his followers bought into this. So as he's talking about, we're here for transparency, we're going to drain the swamp, we're going to call out all the Washington elites. Here you have a situation where you're in a position to release the Epstein files. And then the president starts to go out of his way to do everything he can to not release the files. His supporters begin to call him out and say, Mr. President, this is not what we signed up for. And then he labels them idiots. Okay? He labels them idiots. So right there and then, you cause the fracture. Because the people that were supporting you are now saying, wait a minute, are you covering up for, I'm not going to say the word peas and all of this, the people that do unsavory things to kids and all that. So you had that. Then we got to the point where as we were leading up to the release of the files after the House drafted the articles, and then the president ultimately signed it after, the House, and then it went to the Senate, and ultimately the president signed for the Epstein files to be released. They dropped the files and almost everything was redacted. If you go back to the article that the president signed, the law that the president signed, one of the major things they said was redaction should only be made if it's in an attempt to protect who? The victims. But political officials should not be spared. Celebrities should not be spared. Conspirators should not be spared. And then the DOJ did the total opposite. And then what started happening was, days after they dropped the first files, people started to go on the internet and they figured out clever ways to unredact the redacted files, where you could see various people's names mentioned in them. And guess whose name got mentioned in one of the latest files? President Trump. I want to quickly read something. I'm not going to read too much into it in terms of the article. This is from thetime.com. And it says, I'm just going to read a little bit of it. It says, Trump named in new Epstein files published by Justice Department. The Department of Justice has published thousands more files related to its investigation into Jeffrey Epstein, including a case that references our allegation involving President Donald Trump, as well as a correspondence stating that Trump traveled on the convicted sex offender's private jet many more times than previously had been reported. Following the publication, of an initial tranche of documents over the weekend, Tuesday's release included a number of fully redacted files similar to earlier disclosures that drew sharp criticism for the extent to their redactions. Nearly all the files made public Tuesday contain at least some redactions, primarily of names and email addresses. So you have that first part, right? A lot of his supporters, a lot of those people that voted for Trump are pissed off about that. Then you have the aspect of where he tried to bring in Bill Clinton. Remember, Trump, after the files were released, went out there and said, he really feels bad for Bill Clinton. I feel bad for him. He shouldn't be doing this to him and releasing these pictures. But President Trump was the one that had been pointing everyone's attention in the direction of Bill Clinton all these years. Remember, he said it was Democrats you're going to find in there? So after they now released the first batch of the files, you see former President Bill Clinton there. I think one of the pictures he was like in a pool or jacuzzi or something like that. You're now talking about you feel bad for him. How can you feel bad for him when you were the one that was saying that, Bill Clinton's name is in the files. Prince Andrew's names are in the files. And then something interesting happened, which I think the president didn't account for. He thought that he would try to make it this kind of democratic thing. And then what did Bill Clinton say? He said, release all the files, even the ones that I'm in. Clinton said, release all of the files, even the ones that I'm in. Then you have that aspect of it. I'm just talking about why you see this going on, why we saw what took place at TPUSA go on. Then you have the economy, which is in total shambles. The president is talking about the economy that's not doing well is a hoax. It's a hoax. That's not going over well with Americans, even Americans that voted for him. Then, of course, you have a clashing of thoughts, which is the America First crowd versus the Israel First crowd, which is why some Republicans, conservatives, I don't even know how to characterize these people at this point, don't like Ben Shapiro because they feel like he's Israel First. Remember, he's a Jew, right? And there are a lot of people that don't like the fact that it seems like America is being controlled by Israel, that America should be America First. Hence the comments that Tucker Carlson made at the end. Here's my prediction after all of this. My prediction is this moving forward. I think that if these guys don't shape up and try to find a way to build a coalition and stop all of this infighting, the midterm elections are going to be a bloodbath. You just heard the Speaker of the House say that he believes that Donald Trump will be impeached if the Democrats win in the midterms. Steve Bannon said that if they lose the White House in 2028, a lot of them are going to jail, including him. And believe me when I tell you, if the Democrats take power, they will send them to jail. That's going to happen. It's going to happen. Defying judges, breaking laws, not giving people their just due. You're going to jail. So if that's the outcome that these guys want to avoid, I suggest they stop all the fighting, because it's not really helping their movement. It's really, really not, because at the end of the day, as they said, it's the economy, dummy. People are thinking about their bottom line, and there's only so long you can blow hot smoke up people's you know what. It's just not going to last that long. So things need to change. The president just released what is it? Some information talking about the tariffs of work and this and the tariff. There are people. Do you know that there are people out there that still believe that these tariffs are paid by foreign governments? Are people aware of this? The money paid by tariffs are paid by the consumers. They then took that money and then gave it back to them. That they already taxed from them. There are people out there that actually believe that these foreign companies are the ones that are paying this tariff. Folks, we're in trouble. We are in serious, serious, serious trouble here. It's not a good look. You have major voices like what's his name, Joe Rogan, now calling out the president and administration. Even Asmongold, who became a political commentator, even he's trying to jump ship over the Epstein files. Andrew Schultz, who made a total ass of himself, all of a sudden now regrets his vote. Oh, I should have never got involved in politics. Really? Why? Why do you say so? Why do you say so? Oh, well, the president is doing things that I didn't foresee. Really? What's the thing that the president is doing that he didn't tell you he was going to do? What's the thing that President Trump is doing that he didn't say he was going to do? He's delivering on his promises. He's delivering. So for you to now have all of this to suddenly have this epiphany, oh my God, I can't. Maybe the comments that he made about Rob Reiner after he passed away. Is today the first day you ever heard President Donald Trump talk? Didn't you hear him at Charlie Kirk's was it memorial or burial or whatever it was, where his wife Charlie Kirk, his wife said, I think Erica Kirk said, I'm going to forgive my enemies, and Trump said, I don't forgive my enemies. Isn't that what he said? I don't forgive my enemies. But now you're shocked. Oh my God. Can you believe the president said this? Oh Lord, bless your heart. Catch you guys on the next show. I'm out.